All right, so the next couple of videos I'm going to work on creating an example of how we can get some data from the movie DB API. So we're going to populate or start getting creative with populating our jQuery page here as an example. All right, so before I get there, I'm going to just do some demonstrations just as some getting started, getting warmed up. All right, so I have included my CDN to jQuery, and I've created my document ready met functions so that I can put all of my jQuery inside this function. And I always put in an alert box just to make sure that my page, when it first loads, is in fact getting all of the things, it's all wired up correctly, so it seems to be. And so I also use this ES6 notation here. Remember, that could either be function, which is an anonymous function, which is the same thing as this new notation that we've been seeing recently. Uh-oh, I forgot, we've got an extra thing here. There we go. All right, so let's see, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy and paste some text in here that I have from another monitor here hidden off screen. And all I'm doing right now is I have two H1 tags, each with a unique ID, one of 0 and one of 1. That could very easily be populated if I was looping through a for loop, for an example. And when I is 0, I can set the ID and etc. That's kind of what my thought process is here. And I also have two paragraphs that are identified with the same unique ID. So ID for H1 is 0, etc., etc. So these are some of the Ninja Turtles. For some reason, I was reminded of the Ninja Turtles today. All right, and so I'm going to create an on-click event that is going to respond to whichever H1 I clicked on. But I want to keep it dynamic. I don't want to have to hard code anything in. So here's how we can do that. I'm going to erase my alert box because I know that it's, or alert function, so I know that it's working. And so again, so use jQuery, I use the $sign and then the selector, which in this case I want to grab an H1. And on the click event, I'm going to run a function, but this time I'm going to capture the event. And so event is something that's called automatically. I'm just catching it. If I don't put a variable in there, then the event just disappears. But if I put some kind of variable in there, in this case, I called it event. Sometimes in documentation, you might just see the word E, letter E, whatever it is. I'm going to capture the event, and you'll see what this means here very shortly. And then I'm going to create a function. So what I'm going to do right off the bat before I even move on is I'm going to alert event. So event is the element that triggered this click event. So whoever the element is, whether it be this H1 or this P tag or whatever element fires off this click event is what the object that event is holding. In other words, I'm going to now put in target.id. And so anytime an H1 is clicked on, then I'm going to capture that element. Target element is the element that actually made this click event. And then ID is of course, the ID that's coming here. All right, so let's see this run. So if I click on Donatello, which is a H1 event, then we will see that it triggered that particular element's ID and in this particular event.target.id. Okay, and so that is a way to capture this unique H1. Here's another H1, and now I'm catching this H1's ID. Now it's not going to work on paragraph because I have an H1 selector. So if I click on the paragraphs, I'm not getting anything because I'm catching a click event for H1. And again, the event then is a variable that's holding on to whichever one of these H1 elements that got clicked that triggered this event. All right, so now that I have access to that, I'm going to, there's things that I can now do. Now I can, let's do this. I'm going to capture that event var the ID equals So I'm going to grab that ID. And so now what I'm going to do with that information, I'm going to, I want to grab this p tag. So I know what the ID is because it's matching. But now in order to, let's see, if I had normally tried to grab a p tag, I would do something like, here's how I would do it in jQuery. I'm going to grab a class, which is a period of 0, and then I'm going to do something with it, right? So what I'm interested in doing here is I'm going to toggle it. Okay, so that's toggle is a method, a jQuery method that toggles between hide and show, display show and display none and display like block or show or what have you, and we'll see that over here. All right, so the point is I don't want to hard code this because it's going to depend on if class 0 or class 1. So I can create a string that's going to add. So I'm concatenating a string that I can replace here. So now I can put in, it's actually the class, isn't it? But that's okay. And so now if I save this, let's see what happens. So I'm trying to grab the p tag that has that class and hide or show that element. So let's see if this works. Whoop. So you can see Donatello's paragraph slowly slid away, and now it's slowly sliding back. And if we look at the inspect element of that particular tag, I'm going to watch this happen too. So again, here's Donatello's H1 and, oops, I was trying to highlight it, didn't work. Here's Donatello's H1 and also the P tag. And notice, well, let me reload this and see what it looks like. So the style isn't there, right? So now I'm going to click on Donatello and you should start to see style display none. So we're watching it actually change before our eyes. And so it's toggling between display none, and now display none is being taken away, and so it's just going to say, I think it just comes back with display or style equals, so now the style is blank. So it's actually triggering that style, that CSS style, to show and not show. But now we're also being selective on which class is being shown, which one is displaying and which one is not. So now we're applying a little smarts to it. All right, so we'll elaborate on this on the next video. We're going to start pulling in some data from the movie database API.